Every single morning, without even thinking about it, you do something. Something so ordinary, so automatic, so deeply wired into your routine that it never once crosses your mind as dangerous. You've done it thousands of times. And yet, according to neurological research published over the last decade, that one tiny habit, something that takes less than 30 seconds, could be silently priming your brain for one of the most devastating events a human being can experience: a stroke. Not some vague risk in the distant future, but specifically, and terrifyingly, after the age of 70, when your brain is most vulnerable and least equipped to fight back. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you isn't a scare tactic. It's a pattern. A hidden pattern buried inside the most mundane moments of your day. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. If you've ever wondered why some people age with their minds sharp and clear well into their 80s, while others seem to collapse suddenly, here's where that story actually begins. Not in a hospital, not in old age, right here, in the first 30 seconds after you open your eyes. If protecting your brain matters to you, hit subscribe right now, because what this channel uncovers could genuinely change the trajectory of your health. All right, let's go deep. Picture this. It's 6:30 in the morning, the alarm goes off, you're lying in bed, foggy, warm, somewhere between sleep and wakefulness. And then, like a machine switching on, you do it. You reach over, grab your phone, and start scrolling. Or you swing your legs over the side of the bed and stand up fast, without thinking. Or you grab the remote, flood your brain with noise before it's even had 30 seconds to fully transition. None of these things feel dangerous. That's the whole trap, because the human brain after 70 is operating under an entirely different set of physiological rules than the brain at 40 or 50. The blood vessels are stiffer. The pressure regulation is slower. The neural pathways that govern circulation are more fragile. And in that precise window, those first 30 seconds of waking, your brain is in a state of vulnerability that most doctors never actually explain to their patients. But here's where things get disturbing. It's not just one habit, it's a cluster. A sequence of small, seemingly harmless behaviors chained together every morning, each one adding pressure, each one narrowing the margin of safety. And the cruelest part? The people most at risk are often the ones who consider themselves healthy, the ones who exercise, who take their medication, who eat well. Because this morning mistake doesn't care how careful you are the rest of the day. It lives in the automatic. It hides in the unconscious. So let's pull back the curtain on what's actually happening inside your body the moment you wake up. When you sleep, your body undergoes what researchers call the nocturnal dip. Blood pressure drops significantly during deep sleep. Heart rate slows. Your vascular system relaxes, reducing the workload on your heart and your brain simultaneously. This is one of the most important biological processes your body performs every single night. But the moment your brain begins transitioning toward wakefulness, even before you open your eyes, something powerful starts. Your sympathetic nervous system fires. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Blood pressure surges upward in what cardiologists call the morning blood pressure surge. And here's the number that should stop you cold. Research published in journals, including Hypertension and the Journal of the American Medical Association, has documented that this morning surge, the rapid spike in blood pressure occurring in the first hour of waking, is one of the strongest measurable predictors of stroke in adults over 65. Not high blood pressure averaged across the day, this specific, concentrated morning spike. The surge is steepest, most dangerous, and hardest for the body to manage in those very first minutes. And what makes that surge worse? What amplifies it from a natural physiological event into a potential catastrophe? What you do in those first 30 seconds. There is a behavior so common, so universal, that it barely registers as a choice anymore. Millions of people over 65 do it every single morning without a second thought. Standing up too quickly. The clinical name is orthostatic hypotension. But what happens in the brain during this moment is far more dangerous than the label suggests. Here's the sequence. You've been lying flat for hours. Your blood pressure is near its daily low. Your brain is just beginning to reactivate. And then, in one sudden motion, you swing your legs off the bed, plant your feet, and stand. The entire gravitational load shifts. Blood pools downward toward your legs. Your brain suddenly needs more blood than it's receiving. In a 20-year-old, the body compensates in milliseconds. In a 70-year-old, the arteries are stiffer. The baroreceptors that detect pressure changes are slower. And the window of reduced blood flow to the brain can last 3 to 5 full seconds. 5 seconds of your brain running on less oxygen than it needs. 5 seconds of strain on vessels already narrowed by decades of low-grade inflammation. Research published in the journal Neurology has shown that repeated episodes of orthostatic hypotension are independently associated with increased risk of white matter lesions, small areas of silent damage in the brain that accumulate over years before a major event occurs. This is not a metaphor. This is structural. This is your brain, quietly absorbing micro-injuries, morning after morning, year after year. But that wasn't the real problem. The real problem is what happens when you combine sudden standing with something else, something billions of people do in that exact same 30-second window. And this is where the research takes a turn that genuinely unsettled the neurological community. Studies tracking older adults with ambulatory blood pressure monitors have found that people who stand abruptly and simultaneously engage in high cognitive stimulation, checking phones, absorbing breaking news, reading emotionally charged messages, show significantly amplified blood pressure spikes compared to those who do either behavior in isolation. Think about what that means. It wasn't the standing alone. It wasn't the phone alone. It was the combination. The sudden physical stress on the vascular system, happening at the exact same moment the brain is being flooded with novel, emotionally activating information. Two systems spiking simultaneously. And when that combination repeats daily, for years, it carves something into the vascular architecture of the aging brain that cannot easily be undone. What scientists discovered next changed how researchers view this entirely, because they realized this wasn't just about blood pressure numbers. It was about the deeper system behind them. The brain has a remarkable self-regulation mechanism called cerebral autoregulation. Under normal conditions, it automatically adjusts blood flow to maintain stable internal pressure, regardless of what's happening elsewhere in the body. Stand up suddenly. Cerebral autoregulation compensates. Get stressed. It compensates. It acts like a hydraulic shock absorber for your neurons. But here is what the aging research consistently shows. Cerebral autoregulation becomes measurably less efficient with age. And the morning, specifically those first minutes after waking, is when this system is at its weakest point of the entire day, because it too has been in a suppressed state during sleep. In that window, before autoregulation fully re-engages, the brain is more susceptible to pressure irregularities and flow disruptions than at any other time in the 24-hour cycle. This is why strokes follow a schedule. Data from the American Heart Association and multiple large population studies confirm that strokes occur most frequently between 6 and 10 in the morning, not midday, not evening, but in the window right after waking. When the pressure surge is peaking, when cerebral autoregulation is still rebooting, and when most people are doing exactly the wrong things. You've heard of people going to bed fine and being found collapsed in the morning. You've heard of someone who seemed perfectly healthy getting up and just dropping. This is the biological mechanism behind those stories. The morning is not neutral. It is the highest risk window of the entire day for the aging brain. And hidden beneath all of this was something even darker. Researchers weren't just studying the dramatic strokes, the ones that send people to emergency rooms. They were looking at something quieter, something invisible, something that had been happening to millions of people who had no idea. Silent strokes. They happen. They cause real damage, and you feel nothing. No headache, no paralysis, no warning sign of any kind. They are discovered only on brain scans, often years later, small areas of dead tissue scattered through the white matter like ash, each one the footprint of a tiny vessel that quietly failed. Here is the statistic that lands hardest. Research published in Stroke, the Journal of the American Heart Association, estimates that covert cerebral infarctions, silent strokes, may be 5 times more common than recognized strokes. Studies using MRI imaging have found evidence of silent strokes in roughly 1 in 3 adults over 70, with some estimates running higher. The majority of those people were never diagnosed. Many will never know. And here is why that matters beyond the shocking number. Silent strokes are not harmless. Each one slightly weakens the vascular infrastructure. Each one reduces the brain's capacity to absorb the next insult. Each one moves the threshold closer to the event that won't be silent. That process, quiet accumulation until the day it isn't quiet anymore, is what the morning surge, the sudden standing, and the immediate stimulation are feeding. Not one catastrophic morning, but 1,000 ordinary ones. Now, here's the question I know you're asking. Is there actually something you can do about this? Or is it just biology, just aging, just inevitable? This is where the story pivots. Because the science doesn't just map the danger, it maps the solution with surprising precision. And the solution is not complicated. It doesn't require medication. It doesn't require equipment. It requires changing those first 30 seconds. Before you stand up, before you do anything, lie still for at least 60 seconds. Awake, but horizontal. Let your sympathetic nervous system engage gradually. Let your blood pressure begin its morning rise while gravity isn't fighting it. Research consistently shows that this transition period, even just 60 seconds of conscious stillness, meaningfully reduces the amplitude of the morning pressure surge. Then sit on the edge of the bed before standing. Not long, 30 seconds. This gives your baroreceptors time to register the position change and signal your cardiovascular system to prepare. It converts a sudden shock into a managed transition. And then the phone. What does the neuroscience actually say about immediate morning stimulation? The first 5 to 10 minutes after waking correspond to the brain's transition from theta wave activity, the slow, dreamlike state of light sleep, into full beta wave alertness. During this window, the brain is highly reactive and impressionable. Flooding it with notifications, news, or emotionally charged content before this transition completes doesn't just raise blood pressure. It activates the amygdala, the brain's threat center, before the prefrontal cortex, your rational mind, is fully online. You're absorbing stress without your cognitive defenses in place, and you're doing it at the exact moment your cerebral blood supply is at its most precarious. Neuroscientists call this window of post-sleep neural sensitivity the hypnopompic state. In aging adults, it lasts longer and cuts deeper than in younger brains. Give it 10 minutes. 10 minutes before the world floods in. That single change may be more protective than anything else on this list. But there's one more layer, one that almost never comes up in these conversations. And it may be the most underestimated factor of all: hydration. While you sleep, your body loses water steadily through breathing, perspiration, and basic metabolic function. By the time you wake up, you are in mild to moderate dehydration, every morning without exception. And dehydrated blood is thicker blood. It requires more pressure to push through vessels that are already narrower with age. It is more prone to clotting, and it is the last thing you want circulating through a stressed cerebrovascular system during the morning surge. Research on blood viscosity and stroke risk has consistently shown that adequate hydration is one of the simplest and most overlooked protective factors against early morning cardiovascular events. The recommendation from neurologists and cardiologists is direct. Drink a glass of water before anything else, before coffee, before the phone, before you stand up if you can manage it. Room temperature, nothing fancy, just water. Because your blood needs to thin before it's asked to surge. It sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but that is precisely the paradox of the most powerful health behaviors. They are always simpler than we expect, and that simplicity is exactly why we dismiss them. Now I want you to think honestly for a moment. How many people do you know over 60 who grab their phone before they've even fully opened their eyes? How many who spring out of bed without a pause, as if stillness is a luxury they can't afford. How many who haven't had water before their first coffee in years? You probably know many. You might be one of them. And the reason this matters isn't abstract, it's cumulative. You don't feel a blood pressure spike. You don't feel a moment of reduced cerebral flow. You feel slightly dizzy for a second and call it tiredness. You feel foggy in the morning and blame age. The pattern continues. And the brain, quietly, absorbs the cost. Until one morning, the margin runs out. Here's what the longer view of this science reveals. The brain is not passive in the face of aging. It is not following a fixed, predetermined decline. It is responding, constantly, dynamically, to the signals it receives. And the signals you send it in its most vulnerable moments carry more weight than almost anything else you do. Researchers studying cognitive superagers, adults over 80 with brain function equivalent to people decades younger, consistently find something unexpected in their behavioral profiles. These individuals tend to have a different relationship with urgency in the morning. They don't treat waking up as the starting gun, they ease in. They have what researchers describe as a buffer, a few minutes of gentle transition before the demands of the day arrive. Their brains reflect it. Lower rates of white matter lesions, better preserved cerebral vasculature, more resilient autoregulation. Across different cultures, different economic backgrounds, different health histories, this pattern appears again and again. This is biology. This is the brain responding to how it is treated at its most vulnerable moment. And the deeper you look at this, the more a larger truth starts to take shape. We live in a world that has never moved faster. Information arrives before we're ready for it. Notifications don't wait for consciousness to fully arrive. Productivity culture tells us that the first minutes of the day are leverage. Get up fast, start immediately, lose no time. But our brains are ancient instruments. They were shaped over hundreds of thousands of years of gradual dawns, of slow light, natural transitions, mornings without alarms or screens, or the immediate weight of other people's urgency. And we are now asking these same instruments to boot up at the speed of a smartphone, every single morning, in a body that is growing less able to absorb that demand with every passing year. The mismatch is real, and for the aging brain, it is not trivial. We talk constantly about the diseases of modern life: processed food, sedentary behavior, chronic stress. But we almost never talk about this one, about what happens in those first 30 seconds, about the invisible tax levied on the aging brain by a morning routine designed for a 25-year-old nervous system. The most important health intervention available to you right now may not be a new supplement or a new drug. It may be something almost radical in its simplicity. Permission. Permission to wake up slowly. Permission to give your brain 60 seconds before the world rushes in. Permission to be horizontal a little longer. To sit before you stand. To drink water before you scroll. These are not luxuries. For the aging brain, the evidence is telling us they are protective behaviors. And the difference between a brain that makes it to 90 intact and one that doesn't may lie, in part, in whether that permission was granted, morning after morning, for decades. So tomorrow, when the alarm sounds, when you feel that automatic pull toward the phone, when your body wants to launch immediately into the day, pause. Just for 60 seconds. Lie still. Let your blood pressure find its footing. Let your cerebral autoregulation come back online. Then sit. Then stand slowly. Then drink your water. Then face whatever comes next. Because the morning is not just the beginning of today. It is the investment you are making in every day you hope to have. The brain that carries you through your 70s, your 80s, your 90s. The one that remembers the faces you love, that finds joy in an ordinary afternoon, that keeps you present and clear and fully yourself. That brain is being shaped right now, not in a doctor's office, in those first 30 seconds. The most terrifying strokes are not the dramatic ones. They are the ones that were built quietly, invisibly, one ordinary morning at a time. One small habit, repeated past the point of return. You have the margin right now. The question is whether you protect it. If this changed something for you, share it, not as a warning, as a gift. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this. A parent, a friend, a partner who reaches for their phone before their eyes are fully open. Send it to them. And if you want to keep going deeper, the science that doesn't make headlines, the patterns that could genuinely reshape how you age, subscribe to Dr. Victoria Reed. This conversation is just beginning. Your brain has been carrying you your whole life. Give it 60 seconds back.